Breaking news: Trump and Putin summit ends without agreement on Ukraine. Anchorage, Alaska, in a highly anticipated meeting that drew global attention, former U.S. President Donald Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin concluded their summit in Anchorage late Saturday, with no agreement on a path forward to end the war in Ukraine. The talks, held behind closed doors for nearly 4 hours, were framed as a potential breakthrough opportunity. Many observers hoped the summit might produce at least a framework for ceasefire negotiations, or even a roadmap toward peace. Instead, both leaders left the meeting without a joint statement or concrete commitments, fueling uncertainty about the next chapter of the conflict. According to sources close to the discussions, Trump emphasized the need for immediate de-escalation and suggested economic incentives in exchange for Russia halting its offensive operations. Putin, however, reportedly insisted on recognition of Moscow's territorial claims, a condition Kiev and Western allies have firmly rejected. Outside the summit venue, demonstrators gathered with Ukrainian flags and banners demanding a just resolution. Analysts note that while the meeting highlighted Trump's willingness to engage directly with Putin, it also underscored the deep divides that remain over core issues of sovereignty, security, and international law. Reactions across the world have been swift. European leaders expressed concern over the lack of progress, while the Ukrainian government reiterated that any deal must respect Ukraine's territorial integrity. Critics argued the summit provided Putin with a platform, but yielded no tangible results for peace. For now, the war in Ukraine continues with no end in sight. The Anchorage summit, once seen as a potential turning point, has instead left the international community questioning what diplomatic avenues remain. And how much time is left before the conflict escalates further.
The world held its breath, a collective sigh of hope and fear fogging the cold Alaskan air. In Anchorage, two titans were to meet. President Thorne, a man whose words built towers and tore down treaties, arrived with a gust of bluster. He believed any deal could be made, any war could be ended, with the right handshake. Across the globe, President Volkov watched Thorne's arrival on a screen. A man forged in the shadows of a fallen empire, he saw the world not as a series of deals, but as a chessboard of power. He boarded his own jet, his face a mask of cold calculation. For him, this was not a negotiation, it was a test of wills. They met in a sterile conference room, the vast, untamed wilderness of Alaska visible through a panoramic window. The handshake was firm, a contest of strength played out for the cameras. "We'll have this sorted out in a couple of hours," Thorne boomed, slapping Volkov on the back. "A great deal for everyone." Volkov did not smile. He simply nodded toward the chairs. "The world is more complex than a balance sheet, Mr. President," he said, his voice quiet but carrying the weight of iron. "Some lines are drawn not in ink, but in blood." Thorne waved a dismissive hand, pulling out a gold-plated pen. "Details, details. We're here to make history, not read it. I'm offering you a fantastic way out. A win-win. You pull back your troops, we lift the sanctions. Simple. Everyone goes home happy." For hours, they went back and forth. Thorne spoke of economic incentives, of legacy, of television ratings. He painted a picture of a world where conflicts were just temporary business disputes, solvable with the right branding and a strong closing statement. Volkov countered with talk of history, of spheres of influence, of national pride. He saw Thorne's deal not as a solution, but as a surrender of strategic ground, a humiliation he would never accept. The chasm between their worldviews was as vast and frozen as the landscape outside. The sun began to set, casting long, cold shadows across the conference table. The initial bravado had faded, replaced by a tense, unyielding silence. The gold pen lay untouched. The map on the wall still glowed with the angry red of conflict. "So no deal," Thorne finally said, the boom in his voice gone, replaced by a flat finality. He stood up, straightening his suit. "Your loss. Volkov remained seated. "It is the world's loss, Mr. President," he replied, his gaze fixed on the darkening mountains, as it has always been. The two Titans departed as they had arrived, alone. The Alaskan air remained cold. The world's breath still held. In the snows of Anchorage, a chance for peace had been buried, and the distant drums of war beat on, undeterred and unheard by the men who had flown so far to ignore